If you live on planet Earth, you probably heard of Shrek by now. This smash hit animated film has gained a cult-like following that has immortalized its existence into one of the most beloved films of all time. But the making of Shrek has a darker reality behind it than most of us are aware of. Alright, before we get into the dark stuff, we need a little bit more context to what was happening before the film even went into production. So Shrek was released in 2001, and it quickly became a blockbuster film, so much so that it even took home the Oscar for Best Animated Film.
And the Oscar goes to Shrek.
But the actual making of Shrek actually began 10 years before the release. So around 1991, Steven Spielberg bought the rights to a 30-page children's book that looked like this. He even intended for Bill Murray to be Shrek and Steve Martin to do the voice of Donkey, which is weird because I can really picture anyone else besides Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy in these roles.
If Fiona and I share true love's kiss, I will get my life back.
This is love!
But anyways, he tried to make the movie and it didn't really get past the development stage and his rights to the book expired. By this time, Shrek was just a distant dream that really never happened. Until Spielberg, Geffen, and Katzenberg formed DreamWorks in 1994. So fast forward about a year, Katzenberg buys the rights to the book again and kicks it back into production around 1995. And that's when the shit show begins. Just for some more context, Pixar had just released the first ever computed animated feature film called Toy Story. Yeah, that one. It was a pretty big deal, so that's what DreamWorks had to compete against. And as if that wasn't hard enough, Shrek was only really given a $20 million budget and limited to only having 17 characters in the movie. So to stay within budget, Katzenberg insisted on hiring college graduates to slave away on Shrek inside this terrible warehouse complex in Glendale, California. And on the technical side of things, Shrek was being animated using motion capture, which at the time was considered way shittier than traditional 2D drawing techniques.
The amazing thing is how revolutionary the computer has been in animation. It's not evolutionary, it's revolutionary.
To add on top of that, the directors, writers, and actors kept changing throughout the project. At one point, the guy who directed The Nightmare Before Christmas had the job, since he obviously had some experience and knew what he was doing, but then ended up getting booted by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, both of which were first-timers and had never directed before. Another one of the issues was that Katzenberg wanted the film to be edgier. A lot of people didn't really know what that meant. I mean, how far can you really push a kid's movie? Conceptually, no one's coming to agreement as to what Shrek should actually be. So the whole thing was a fucking mess. Around the same time, DreamWorks was making The Prince of Egypt, which is a more prestigious project to be working on since it had a bigger budget, a star cast, and just overall not a shit show. In her book, The Men Who Would Be King, Nicole Laporte writes about this, stating that these factors all contributed to the degenerate status, and even quoted one animator saying, "It was known as a gulag. If you failed on The Prince of Egypt, you were sent to work on Shrek." The punishment was so common that it even got the nickname "to get Shreked." So around this time, Katzenberg saw some test footage of the movie, but hated it. He thought the characters looked too unrealistic and nothing close to their competition at the time, which was Disney.
And part of the DreamWorks problem was that these three guys were titans. They were moguls when they started. And, you know, it's hard to go from being Steven Spielberg and David Geffen, who are used to just spending a lot of money and having a lot of money to spend, to being a startup. And I think that was part of the problem. I mean, ostensibly they were a startup company.
All these issues compounded so much that eventually they shut down production, fired about 40 people who were working on the project, and Shrek at the time really seemed like it would never happen. At this point, DreamWorks had flushed down millions of dollars down the toilet and really nothing to show for it. For a moment in 1997, things got a little brighter when they restarted production. They were able to land Chris Farley for the voice of Shrek, who just come off these two comedy classics.
Gotta go to the bathroom, Daddy. Not now, damn it.
Truck tire.
I can't stop.
Help! We've all been screwed by Governor Tracy. And now I'm gonna screw her. I mean,
However, that bright moment soon got engulfed by another tragedy.
Sad and upsetting news. We found out that Chris Farley died, passed away.
Chris Farley died by overdosing on cocaine and morphine towards the end of 1997. Things were going so bad that they did consider shutting down the project and just scrapping everything. But Katzenberg hadn't given up yet and gave Shrek to another production studio to reshape the animation to look a little bit more lifelike. They argued whether to cast a Chris Farley sound-alike actor to finish the movie, but the crew thought it would be insincere and just a shitty thing to do since he had just passed away. So they ended up casting Mike Myers, just straight off of his success from Austin Powers, which was a huge deal at the time. Shortly afterwards, they land Eddie Murphy for the role of Donkey, which gave them another sign of hope. One of the co-directors, Andrew Adamson, said this about Eddie Murphy. You'd pitch him a sequence and you'd show him the pages. He'd read it very quietly, just kind of to himself, and then he'd step in front of the microphones and just bam, instantly, it's Donkey. He'd come up with stuff we never even imagined. He'd take a single beat joke and turn it into a 3-beat joke. As if that star cast wasn't full enough, they added Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona following her breakout role in There's Something About Mary. So it's safe to say that this is a huge win for DreamWorks. I mean, they landed these amazing fucking actors, but the battle wasn't over yet. They still had to work on Shrek matching Mike Myers' voice and mannerisms a lot more, since they had modeled everything before that to match Chris Farley.
Why do you want to talk about it?
Why are you answering the question with a question?
Why are you asking questions I don't want to answer?
Why are you blocking?
I'm not blocking.
Then why do you have problems expressing your wants?
I don't. I want you to shut up.
But the computer nerds ended up fixing that, and the actors record everything, directors are done, writing is done. So after all this bullshit, it seemed like Shrek was finally coming to a wrap, but then another setback happened. Mike Myers wanted to change all the lines because he wanted to do a Scottish accent, thinking that it would contrast Lord Farquaad's snobby accent a lot more. Katzenberg, having gone through all this crap and being so close to the finish line, reluctantly said yes. And it came at a really hefty price tag. It cost him about $4 million for this creative choice. However, I think that creative choice is arguably one of the best choices they could have made for Shrek, since it made the movie so much funnier. I can't really picture any other accent besides the Scottish one for Shrek.
Ogre, I'll make you a deal. Go on this quest for me, and I'll give you your swamp back.
Exactly the way it was.
Down to the last slime-covered toadstool.
And the squatters?
As good as gone.
One of a kind.
Anyways, they finally get that motherfucker made, and they go to the Cannes Film Festival to screen it just a few days before its national US release. One of the co-directors, Vicky Jensen, recalls, "Here we are sitting in tuxedos and evening gowns, wearing borrowed jewels, and everyone's watching Shrek take a poo in the water." An anxious Katzenberg remembers, "For the first 10 minutes, nothing. My heart was thumping, my forehead was breaking out in a sweat. I said to myself, they're going to burn the place down." So just imagine going through all this bullshit, and for the first 10 minutes, there's no laughter at all. However, by the end of the film, the audience was up from their seats, and Shrek got a standing ovation. It went on to make $42 million on its opening weekend, making it DreamWorks' biggest success to date. So as I was doing research for this video, I found out about a whole bunch of other fun facts about the making of Shrek and just random stuff that didn't really fit the whole video. So we're just gonna have a lightning round Shrek trivia. First one, the song that everybody loves, All Star by Smash Mouth, wasn't actually meant to be in the movie. They were just using it as a placeholder until they found the perfect song, but it tasted really well with audiences, so they just kept it in. Number two, some of the animators actually took mud showers because they wanted to properly animate how Shrek's mud shower scenes would actually look like, so shout out to them for that level of commitment. Number three, Farquaad's kingdom is loosely based on Disneyland. You can kind of see it in that creepy scene where Shrek and Donkey are in Duloc and the little puppet things start to sing to them. They're kind of throwing shade at Disney for how they show this fake happy place, basically. 4. DreamWorks sent the movie to Disney's lawyers just to avoid getting sued, since a lot of the elements that they used in the movie were parodying Disney. It was almost like the anti-Disney movie. They got off clean, but apparently Radio Disney affiliates wouldn't let DreamWorks buy any ad time to promote Shrek, since they probably got a little salty. Number 5. Next, the Disney DreamWorks beef continues because Lord Farquaad allegedly was based on a Disney executive. At the time, Jeffrey Katzenberg had a competitive thing going on with Michael Eisner, who was the CEO of Disney at the time. 6. At some point, they wanted to show Shrek's past, where apparently his parents were always trying to eat him, so he ran away, and that's why he's living alone in a swamp. Kind of a good idea that they didn't greenlight that, since it probably would have given us old nightmares. Number 7. During development, it was pitched for Shrek to be a bitchy teenager who didn't care about the rules, yo. But I guess that didn't fly either. 8. Nicolas Cage turned down the role of Shrek because he didn't like the idea of him being associated with playing an ogre, which is ironic coming from someone who will literally do any movie ever. Number 9. Shrek was turned into a play in 2008 and even won a Tony Award for Best Costume Design in a Musical. And lastly, number 10. Shrek has a ton of dark jokes, but one of them that I didn't catch was that Lord Farquaad definitely killed and skinned one of the 3 bears. Here's a scene at the start of Shrek.
This cake is so small.
Now here's this other scene, and just notice what's on his floor.
Again. Show me again.
Yeah, he killed and skinned Mama Bear. Anyways, hope you heathens enjoyed the video, and if you do want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. See you next week. Love you like a headache.